Our Facebook page name has been altered, but we are working towards revitalizing that. Now let's get started. Listening to the people. That is the mantra of the new party that former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua has launched, gearing up for the 2027 contest. Democracy for Citizens Party bears official colors of neon green, white and black, and its logo depicts a hand reaching an ear. Gachagua, while presiding over the launch in Nairobi, built his political message around listening to the people, whom he claims no longer subscribe to the UDA party that once helped him and President William Ruto rise to power. The unveiling of the party has sparked debate within the Kenya Kwanza circles, with some interpreting it as a strategic move by Gachagua to consolidate political influence in the Mount Kenya region. Right, shall be bringing you that particular story. Moving on, chaos erupted during the launch of former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua party in Lavington, Nairobi County, after a group of suspected goons attempted to interfere with the proceedings. The disturbance occurred on Thursday morning, May 15th, shortly after Gachagua and senior officials from the Democracy for the Citizens Party, that is the DCP, had departed the venue. Police officers who were on high alert swiftly responded by firing warning shots into the air to disperse the crowd that had gathered near the exit to catch a glimpse of the former DP. Amid the commotion, the former Deputy President convoy was briefly halted as police ramped up efforts to restore order. The situation calmed down after approximately 5 minutes. Now, listening to the people is the new mantra of the new party that former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua has launched, gearing up for the 2027 contest. Democracy for Citizens Party bears the official colors of neon green, white and black, and its logo depicts a hand reaching an ear. Gachagua, while presiding over the launch in Nairobi, built his political message around listening to the people, whom he claims no longer subscribe to the UDA party that once helped him and President William Ruto to rise to power. The unveiling of the party has sparked debate within the Kenya Kwanza circles, with some interpreting it as a strategic move by Gachagua to consolidate political influence in the Mount Kenya region.
DCP, Democracy for the Citizens Party. Hapa basi tutaweza kupata the leadership.
Like-minded Kenyans have spoken to us and told us that they are tired of corruption. They are tired of abductions and extrajudicial killings. They are tired of state capture. They are tired of organized and state crime and violence. Kenyans have told us that they need a peaceful nation where the rule of law is respected, where education system is working, and where health care is not a privilege but a right. Kenyans have told us that they need a nation that is respected at the international forum. Kenyans have told us that they want to be listened to. My fellow countrymen, our nation needs a restoration of dignity in the spirit of the unfinished business of multi-party democracy. Our sense of duty to patriotism and nationhood towards a new Kenya, where every citizen is listened to, has come. My countrymen, it is time to provide a conducive environment for peace, justice, and speedy restoration of development. Respect for the rule of law and human rights. It is time for liberation of our beloved country. It is time for our nation to take off socially, economically, and politically. History will be kind to us for taking a bold move to listening to each other. Detest lies. And that is why I disagreed with the liar number one.
Now, hours after Rigathi Gachagua launched his new party outfit, critics took the opportunity to castigate the former DP, accusing him of tribal politics and intent to divide the nation. DP Kithure Kindiki, while in Nakuru, said Kenyans should reject tribal politics, which is meant to draw back the gains made on democracy. Now, Nakuru Governor Susan Kehika, who is back on the public scene, also urged residents of Nakuru to shun Gachagua's attempt of infiltrating the region.
Politically, people are free to hold different political opinions. Ile tu tunasema hatutaki uchochezi, hatutaki because we have been there before and we know how painful it is to incite the public against each other, to bring division, violence. Those politics of violence, division, incitement are old-fashioned politics. We must resist those politics as a country. Na wale wanaunda vyama, there is no problem. Kila mtu aunde chama, ule anataka kuunda chama, there is no problem. Lakini wacha kusema hii ni chama ya kabila hii ama dini hii, kwa sababu utatenganisha wananchi. Sema hii ni chama ya Wakenya wote, ile ingine ikuwe ni ya Wakenya, alafu tu campaign. Wakati wa campaign ikifika tumenyane, kila mtu atoe record yake. Uambiwe wewe Kindiki 2.5 years ulikuwa Deputy President, ulisukuma nini ikakuja pande hii ya Molo na Njoro?
Na ndio hata mimi nikiona kuna wengine sasa wanazunguka wakitengeneza chama za kabila, za ukabila. Mimi nikiwa governor wa county ya Nakuru nasema nataka kuona watu wakiletwa pamoja, sio watu wakigawanyishwa. Sisi we cannot go that direction. We are one county that is very diverse, na hatutaitikia tukuje hapa tukorogwe kwa ukabila, na ni sisi tunajua ile shida tunakuaga nayo kama Nakuru County maneno ikiendelea hivyo. Kwa hivyo watu wangu wa Nakuru County, tafadhali sisi tuendelee kukaa venye tumekaa, tukae na amani, we be very peaceful, na tusiitikie mtu atoke na huko kwenye anatoka akuje kutukoroga hapa. Wacha tuendelee kufanya kazi pamoja. Tulitafuta hii serikali, hatutatoka sasa tuingie msituni na serikali ni.
Now, the government is set to roll out a new information management system for the education sector in the country. The new system, the Kenya Education Management Information System, will gradually replace the current National Education Management Information System. Basic Education PS Julius Bitok says the new system will be rolled out in phases, starting with the registration of learners from next month.
On the issues of information, especially from the users, the head teachers of schools, that some students are not being captured in NEMIS. We have had issues across in the polytechnics, issues in the universities, issues concerning the new funding model, the data, the information. So this morning we came so that we can make sure that we give the necessary support to the ministry to ensure that they have one-stop shop on data.
This is a golden opportunity to be able to unify, and this system will cover the entire education system, from from ECD, or rather basic education, TVETs, higher education, up to research. It will integrate all our institutions, including all our schools, all our colleges, all our sub-county directors of education, all our county directors of education. All this will be integrated in one ecosystem called KEMIS.
Now, a section of supporters of Governor James Orengo have come out guns blazing against Energy CS Opiyo Wandayi, accusing him of undermining the leadership of the governor. They have also accused him of laziness in office and not working for Kenyans or working for the people of the Siaya County. They have warned the CS against the provocation against the governor. This yet again signals political fallout in the Luo Nyanza region after the formation of a broad-based government. Siaya Governor James Orengo has been a vocal critique of the formation, terming the move dangerous.
Ready to tolerate provocation of any height against our governor. First of all, Wandayi is former MP whose development survived due to scarcity of population. Because Ugunja constituency is just like one ward in a leg of Songa. Secondly, one day deserted us when graves of our young Turks were still fresh. He deserted us for bigamous marriage. He joined broad-based government, which is not helping us. He must know that Orengo is very, very important to us, and he must respect Orengo as our governor.
Asiwe mtu wa kusahau. Asiwe mtu ni wa kusahau. Opiyo Wandayi alitolewa na governor Orengo kama kodestro. Sahi ni muda angekuwa amenyongwa kitambo sababu ya mauaji. Na Orengo akamsimamia kotini na akamtoa. Leo anakuja kufuruga Siaya County, anafuruga governor Orengo, analeta nyonyonyoro mingi katika Siaya County. Hii ni onyo. Asiwe mtu wa kusahau. Nawe na tabia kukumbuka. Na najua ni mtu wa kusahau baada atasahau. Kwani sisi tutakuwa bora kuliko watu wa Ugunja. Ugunja walimtoa kama hajielewi, hajulikani ni nani, na siku aliposikia mambo ya waziri, si alikimbia kawawacha. Ni kama anakuja, ni kama anatuambia siji ni nini, ni kama anataka kiti ya governor. Kiti ya governor tumpe tena tutoroke. Vile tutoroka watu wa Ugunja.
We know that you are the one who was paying off MCAs to go to State House today. That one we know, and that is the information that we have. And one day we want to tell you that you should stop using your position to deteriorate, or rather to divide the people of Siaya.
I just want to say thank you to the MCAs who stood by the governor yesterday. There's no way you can go to a fight minus your commander. And we ask them to maintain their position. We ask the people of the resident of Siaya, we are fully behind them. And let nobody intimidate them. Be it the external forces, the ministers, whosoever. Nobody should intimidate them, because we are the people who voted them in, and we are the people who are feeling their presence on how they are working. Secondly, to the minister, please leave the governor alone. Let the governor do his job. You also.
Homa Bay Governor Gladys Wanga now says the county is ready to host the June 1st Madaraka Day celebrations, saying she is satisfied with the progress of the preparations. The Committee for the National Planning, including Interior PS Raymond Omolo, as well as Sports CS Salim Mvurya, also visited the 12,000 capacity seater stadium at Raila Odinga Stadium that will host the celebrations. This year's celebrations are themed Blue Economy and Maritime Affairs, in line with the country's strategic focus on unlocking the potential of our aquatic resources for sustainable development and economic transformation.
We will be having a 3-day event culminating into Madaraka Day that will be opened by His Excellency the Deputy President. On day 2, the Right Honorable the Prime Minister will preside, and on day 3, which is the last day for that conference, His Excellency the President will close that forum. And throughout those 3 days, there'll be a lot of participation, particularly from the local community around the lake basin. We have the beach management units and several agencies, both government and non-governmental, including the business community.
When we come here for the celebrations, everybody sitting in this stadium is going to be under the shades, the 12,000 plus of them. I know that they're going to be way more than 12,000, more in the region of 100,000, but we'll find a way of everybody finding space to sit. The progress on the other areas, all the effort that was required of the county government, we are committed. Our teams have worked together with the national team to ensure that everything that is required of the county government is also put in place so that the celebrations are successful. I'd like to now take this opportunity, because now it's only 2 weeks away, to welcome the people of Homa Bay and the entire region and the entire country for Sunday 1st of June 2025 to come and celebrate Madaraka in Homa Bay. I can assure you it will be a madaraka.
Right, moving on, matters international news. The beginning July, coffee farmers across the country will start receiving their payments through a centralized system. The new payment structure is part of the broader government reform aimed at eliminating corruption within coffee cooperatives. Now, the Cabinet Secretary for Cooperatives and MSMEs, Wycliffe Oparanya, spoke in Bungoma on Thursday during the launch of a new coffee factory. Oparanya stressed that the reform is a concrete step towards ensuring transparency and protecting the income of coffee farmers. Under the new model, farmers will be paid 40 shillings per kg of coffee produced in their communities, of which 80% will go directly to the farmer, while 20% will be retained by the cooperative.
Nikaangalia cooperatives zina shida. Management ya cooperatives zina shida. Gharama na bei ya kahawa ilikuwa inatoka kwa baadhi ya viwanda ilikuwa inaleta shida. Na nikamwambia Mheshimiwa Governor na kamati ya ukulima ambayo mimi ni mwenyekiti kwamba lazima tunyoroshe mambo ya kahawa Bungoma hii. Na mimi kama mwenyekiti kule Nairobi haiwezekani watu wanapata 140 150 pa kilo, na mimi kule nyumbani ninatoka wanakunguta shilingi 12 40 60. Hiyo nikasema haiwezekani.
So tumeingia hapo kama reforms za kahawa zinaendelea. Na mimi nimeshikilia hapo kuona ya kwamba zinakamilishwa nikiwa hapo. Ile reforms ya kwanza, wale watu matepeli ambao walikuwa kwa mambo ya kahawa, mtu hana kahawa hata mtu mmoja, lakini yeye anaongea mambo ya kahawa. Yeye ndio official wa kahawa, na yeye hana hata jui kahawa yenyewe inafanana namna gani, lakini yeye anakaa kwa ofisi ati yeye ni kiongozi wa mambo kahawa. Sasa kuanzia hivi tumesema zile cooperatives zote ambazo zilikuwa zinahusiana na mambo ya kahawa zote zitakuwa revived, tutawapa support, na hivi karibuni tutataka election ifanywe ya wale viongozi wote, tupate wale viongozi ambao wako committed kwa mambo ya cooperative katika kahawa, wale watafanya kazi na serikali.
Now, a total of 107 firearms, 540 ammunition, and 725 kilograms of assorted drugs have been confiscated from armed groupings operating in Merti and Shaba areas of Isiolo County. While inspecting a cache of weapons displayed by a multi-agency security team at Isiolo County Commissioner Headquarters, Interior CS Kipchumba Murkomen said the Operation Malizo Khalifu, spearheaded by the various technical security teams, seized the semi- and automatic rifles through an intense battle with criminal entities that have been profiting drug arms and the proliferation of businesses.
After Mombasa, Nairobi, Isiolo is the third most affected city when it comes, or town when it comes to the questions of drugs. Basically because this is a route and this is where the traffickers meet, and there is a conglomeration of all kinds of drugs here, which is basically coming from the porous borders in our neighboring countries. And this is an issue that we have been focusing on together with human trafficking. As you know, in Operation Ondoa Jangili, Furusha Uhalifu from this area has been focusing on these issues.
All right, moving on to matters international news. US President Donald Trump on Wednesday had tea with a former jihadist who until recently had $10 million US bounty on his head. Interim Syrian President Ahmed al-Shara, once known by his militant name as Abu Mohammed al-Jolani, met Trump in Riyadh 6 months after leading a swift campaign that topped the half-a-century-old Assad regime, ejecting an Iran armed groups and declaring himself leader of the country. Al-Shara on the US specifically designed global terrorist list in 2013 for heading Al-Qaeda affiliate in Syria known as Al-Nusra Front and allegedly orchestrating suicide bombings across Syria. The Saudi-born former jihadist had spent years fighting US forces in Iraq before moving to Syria to lead the unarmed Islamist rebellion that ousted the brutal dictator Bashar al-Assad.
How did you find the Syrian president?
Great. Great. I think very good. Young, attractive guy, tough guy. You know, strong pass. Very strong pass fighter.
Does that worry you at all?
He's got a real shot at pulling it together. I spoke with President Erdogan, who I'm very friendly with him. He feels he's got a shot at doing the good.
Right, 39 minutes past the top of the hour. That will take a short breather here on The Drift. We'll be back with much more, including matters on the dailies today. Don't go too far. Right, welcome back to the program. Just in case you're joining us, you're watching The Drift. My name is Martin Masharia. We are live on Facebook and as well as on YouTube. And you can as well send us your feedback through our SMS line. That is 23059. Now let's get started on the dailies today. And today I'm having the Star newspaper, the Weekend Star newspaper, the Daily Nation, and the Standard newspaper. Let's take a look on what's making headlines on the Star newspaper dated today, the 16th day of May 2025. And top story on the Star, it has been revealed that the cost of Ruto's church events, that is top story, of course, on the Star newspaper. Let's take a look on the particular story on page 4 and 5 of the Star. Now, details have emerged that the expenses taxpayers foot for President William Ruto's will went towards including church events and private functions. Now, documents tabled in Parliament show the cost of a public address system, tents and carpet in a single interdenominational prayer service ranges between 4 million Kenya shillings and 15 million Kenya shillings. Now, for 16 churches events alone that President has attended, the government has incurred a bill of 118 billion Kenya shillings. Now, this rather million, I beg your pardon, that is 118 million Kenya shillings. Now, this is for the basic services only, such as hiring of a public address systems, tents, and seats. Now, the total of are likely to be higher considering the undisclosed as ancillary cost, such as security detail, transport, and protocol services. Now, the documents reveal that in some instances, even private functions with no clear government purpose are bankrolled with taxpayers' money. For instance, the government incurred a bill of over 27 million Kenya shillings for supplies for the Great Chepa Saita cross-country 2024 edition that was held in Uasin Gishu County. Now, various suppliers of the tents, red carpets, helicopter charters, high-end public address system, and conferencing services are collectively owned 626 million Kenya shillings. Homeland Events, which is owed the highest amount, charges high at as 30 million Kenya shillings for an event with the smaller receptions costing 350,000 Kenya shillings on the lower side. Now, the government also owes Chamania Events Limited, which charges 200,000 Kenya shillings to 5 million Kenya shillings, with Homeboys Entertainment is owed between 3.6 million shillings and 18 million shillings. Now, Bowman Aviation Limited is also owned colossal amounts for chopper charters, so to is Pro Flight Limited. Now, Arctic Tours, Green Bay Travel, Flight Center Travel, Travel Company, and Villagio Travel are owned varied amounts for flight bookings. Now, the Star continues to say that since assuming office, President Ruto has been attending church events in most parts of the country, and that is the cost that he has been incurring during his church service. What's your take on that? Of course, such amount of money can be used elsewhere, maybe in the health sector or education. What's your take? Engage us on our socials. Moving on, status now moves a costly power as Kenyans stare at blackouts. Now the government is considering drastic measures to address the country's power crisis, including resorting to the costly thermal generators. This is in the face of the rolling blackouts that have continued to grip the nation due to critical electricity shortages. Energy Principal Secretary Alex Washira revealed that the grid is operating with dangerously low spinning reserves. You remember, actually, this particular week, residents at Githogoro protested having blackout for at least 4 months, which the Kenya Power says that the area have due arrears, which has made the power blackout. I don't know what the situation is at now. Moving on to matters politics. Why ODM block power will define next 2 elections. Of course, that place story you can get in page 10 of the Star newspaper now. Continues to say, in the high-stakes casino of Kenyan politics, the alliances shift is like desert stands one entity consistently has proved its ability to not just play a game, but to fundamentally shape the playing field. Now, the Orange Democratic Movement, that is the ODM, has whispers and strategic leaks paint a fascinating, if hypothetical, picture of the 2027 presidential contest, one potentially without former Prime Minister Raila Odinga running with the ODM backing President William Ruto's UDA against Omunyoro, challenger and undeniable through the margins. Now, ODM, with or without its icon leader as at the presidential helm, is poised to be a fulcrum upon which Kenya's future power balances, policy directions, and even the 2032 presidency will turn. Now, the numbers have painstakingly crunched by political strategies and laid bare in various analyses simply don't lie. Now consider the scenario: President William Ruto leading the UDA secures ODM's backing based on the estimated strength on their voting blocks. UDA's dominance in such regions such as the North Rift and frontier counties, combined with ODM's historical command of the coast, significant swathes of the Lake region economic bloc, and substantial support in Nairobi and the Maa region, the resulting coalition will be numerical in the matters politics. Now, it's too early to start talking about who will vie on, who will not vie. Of course, we've seen that the ODM party, you can't, of course, know what their next move is. Moving on, finance bill boon for SMEs as the state eases tax burden to clear pending bills. Now, you remember that the finance bill 2025 is out now and is open for discussion, public participation in the public domain. I don't know if you have read the proposed 2025 finance bill. Now, let's take a look on that particular story on page 12 of this Star newspaper. Now, Nyanza governors must wake up new realities. Now, the brutal assassination of Kasipul Member of Parliament Ongondo Were, gunned down in his car at Nairobi traffic stop, is growing alarms, stain of Kenya's conscience. Now, such violence against sitting lawmaker demands not only outrage but collective introspection. Yet, even as the nation reels, Homa Bay County Governor Gladys Wanga, chairperson of the ODM, choose a path of division, declaring that the members of President William Ruto's UDA party will be barred from the MP's funeral. Now, this reaction, though perhaps born of grief, is a betrayal of leadership. Now, in moments of horror, leaders are called to unite, to model empathy, and to prioritize healing over the political vendettas. Wanga outburst alongside Siaya Governor James Orengo a recent ideological heredity exposes a troubling disconnect between some leaders and the shifting priorities of the people they serve. Now, Kenya's challenges demand stewardship and balances moral clarity with pragmatic action, a lesson the two leaders must urgently heed. Now, Gladys Wanga now says she doesn't want to see UDA member of parliament in Ngondo Were's funeral. That's so alarming. Now, Ruto handpicked IEBC team causing alarms. Now, President William Ruto has done away with all pretenses and is openly displaying his cards to all see, and his foot soldiers are doing the same for their mouths. I will not be the first president to serve one term in East Africa. Those are the words of course, President William Ruto. It is not a subtle message. It is a threat complete with mtadu attitude, which is entirely predicated or a false sense of confidence and misleading yet again of the people's attitudes. Now, although Ruto is reading from the same playbook of the past when it comes to a selection of appointment of the electoral mismanagement bodies of yesteryear, he has deviated in a manner that is shocking to the mind-blogging. You'll remember that Wiper Party leader, that is Kalonzo Musyoka, this week actually said that the IEBC were handpicked by President William Ruto. Of course, you remember there were names presented to the parliament which are scheduled to be vetted as soon as the House resumes. Now, Wiper Party leader in his statement this particular week says that the picks from the IEBC, the IEBC that includes the chairman of the IEBC, that is Edakon Edang, was of course handpicked. I don't know what's your take on that. Moving on, lobby demands full disclosure of prohibited pesticides. Now, the government must publicly disclose the full list of brand pesticide products recently banned from the Kenyan market, say farmers, consumers, environmentalists, and civil society groups. Now, the groups are calling on the Pest Control Products Board to release the names of the products containing hazardous ingredients. Now, while they praised the ban of 50 substances, the groups emphasized the need for transparency, swift and effective implementation, and the promotion of a safer pest control alternatives for a toxic-free food system. Of course, that particular story you can get on page 10 of the Star newspaper. Now, Gachagua seeks to shed off tribal tag, and there is a picture there of the former deputy president, that is the Rigathi Gachagua, who is the party leader of the newly DCP party, that is the Democracy for Citizens Party, launched, or of course, unveiled today. And there is a picture there of him and the confrontation that was there during the unveiling of the party. Now, Gachagua says, I have heard you. And the former president Rigathi Gachagua, during the unveiling of the Democracy of the Citizens Party in Lavington, Nairobi on Thursday, delegates during the launch. A young man is roughed up by Gachagua security after a group of young youth tried to disrupt the event. Of course, there is a picture there of the young youth, and he seems to have bloody hands. I don't know whether he was beaten up. Moving on to the Daily Nation, dated today, the 16th day of May 2025. Top story on the Daily Nation: shame of political thuggery. Goons caused chaos at the launch of a party by former DP Rigathi Gachagua. The violence, yet another ominous signal to growing political intolerance ahead of the 2027 polls. Now, yesterday's ugly scenes were in sharp contrast to the calm accorded to the rebel DP Ruto in 2021 when they first publicly introduced his UDA party. Of course, that particular story, you can get it on page 4 and 5 of the Daily Nation. Now, new school system links data with Maisha number. Now, a new system that will integrate all learners' data with Maisha number digital identity will be piloted from July. Now, the Kenya Education Management Information System, that is KEMIS, will replace the National Education Management System, that is NEMIS. Now, I don't know what's your take on that, NEMIS and KEMIS. I don't know whether NEMIS worked for you. I don't know. Have you ever used NEMIS? Me, of course, I've never used NEMIS. Let's take a look on that particular story on page 2 and try to get a picture of what's happening now. The Kenya Education Management Information System, that is KEMIS, will replace NEMIS platform, which have faced many challenges from the time it was launched in 2018. Now, Education Principal Secretary Julius Bitok says the system incorporates two key additions, a mobile application for education and integration with the Maisha number digital ID. Now, under Maisha number, every newborn will be provided with a unique personal identifier, that is the UPI, which will also be used by KEMIS, he said. Now, the UPI will also be used to process death certificate numbers and help the government to store accurate data. Now, Professor Bitok formed a team that is tasked with the consolidating existing registers of students who are from foundation learning to universities level into a unified database. Now, NEMIS only has data of basic education learners. The PS added that the system will provide the real-time data access to learners, parents, education officials, and other stakeholders through the app. He says, and I quote, "We are working to ensure the process is easy and more convenient than NEMIS. One does not have to visit a school or education office in person." Those are the words of Professor Julius Bitok, who is the Basic Education Principal Secretary. Moving on, there is a picture there of a man being beaten up by security of course, Rigathi Gachagua during yesterday's unveiling of the DCP party, that is the Democratic Citizens Party. Now, there is a picture there, of course, William Ruto with his yellow tie, of course, which depicts his UDA party, and above, security agents rough up a young man during the unveiling Democracy for the Citizens Party. That is the DCP by former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua in Lavington yesterday. And there is the picture there of Deputy President William Ruto when he first introduced his United Democratic Alliance party at the DP's current residence on August 5th of 2021. Then was the then Deputy President of the Republic. Now unfit for office, the case against 4 IEBC nominees. Now, a court petition of a persons nominated by President William Ruto to serve as poll commissioners could delay further the reconstitution of the Electoral Commission. Now, those are the words of chairperson nominee, of course, the words of the court. Now, there is a picture there of the nominee for the chairperson seat, that is Erastus Edokon. Of course, that particular story, you can get it on page 6 of the Daily Nation. Now, a petition filed at the High Court in Milimani, Nairobi, claims that the proposed chairperson Erastus Edokon, together with nominees Hassan Nur Hassan, Mary Karen Sorobit, and Rito, were not qualified to apply to the selected as members of the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission. This is because of perceived bias, breach of the principles of political neutrality, vying for political posts in 2022, being a member of political outfits, and failure to leave state of offices before their nomination. Now, they were nominated alongside Moses Mkhwana, Francis Odhiambo, and Fahima Abdallah as commissioners. Now, the court case, which poses a fresh stalemate on the reconstitution of the polls body, came at a time the National Assembly is preparing to vet the 7 nominees. Now, although the petition is against all the 7 nominees over President William Ruto's failure to consult their position, the petitioners have raised eligibility and integrity queries against the 4. Now, they want the president's recommendations cancelled. Should Parliament approve the 7 nominees and the petition against forced sale through IEBC would remain inoperative due to lack of quorum to conduct business. The IEBC Amendment Act says the quorum for the conduct of business at a meeting of the Commission shall be at least 5 members of the Commission. Court papers also show that the additional names submitted by President by the selection panel include Mr. Edward Katama Nkeywa, a 49-year-old from Trans Nzoia County living with disability, who had been proposed for the position of chairperson along Mr. Edokon for commissioner post. The panel had also proposed Mr. Philip Kakai and Mr. Joseph Kiavoa. Now, President did not disclose why he declined the 3, which is one of the grounds in the court case. The petition was filed by 2 Kenyans, Mr. Kevin Roy Omondi and Mr. Boniface Mwangi, who want the court to bar the 7 nominees from being vetted as assuming now the office. The lawyers Douglas and associate advocates claim that the consultation of the opposition was a requirement under the National Dialogue Committee, that is NADCO, report and the IEBC Amendment Act of 2024. Now, we'll wait and see what the court has to say about the 4 which they say they are unqualified to be in the IEBC. Now, moving on to the Standard newspaper. Right, top story on the Standard newspaper, Tower of Babel. Of course, that is derived from the Bible. Let's take a look on what the Tower of the Babel. Of course, there is a picture there of President William Ruto, Nurdin Haji, that is from NIS, and Interior's ES Kipchumba Murkomen. Now let's take a look. There is a title there, the Tower of Babel, from the Standard newspaper. Now, the Tower of Babel, the story of the Tower of Babel, of course, it is from the Bible and is located in Genesis 11, verses 1 to 9. And it says, after a great flood, humanity spoke one language and lived together in one place. As they migrated eastward, they settled in a land called Shinar. There, they settled in to build a city and a tall tower that reached the heavens, using the brick instead of stone and tar for mortar. Now, their goal was to make a name for themselves and avoid being scattered across the earth. However, God saw what they were doing and noted that with one language, nothing they planned would be impossible for them. To prevent this prideful ambition, God confused their language so they could no longer understand each other. As a result, the people stopped building the city and were scattered across the earth. The place was called Babel, which sounds like a Hebrew word for confused, because it was there that God confused the language of the people. So that's why the title Tower of Babel. It is derived, of course, from Genesis chapter 11, verses 1 to 9. Of course, you can take a look at that later on. Let's take a look on what the Standard has to say about the confused, which the Bible terms it as confused, Tower of Babel. Now, conflicting statements from members of the National Security Council at formal sitting, including Parliament and media interviews, have left the country wondering whether the apparent mix-up emanates from a case of poor messaging and inability to point a communication towards a certain end, or it is indeed a reflection of a weak coordination among top security organs. Of course, let's take a look at that particular story on page 4 of the Standard newspaper, dated today, the 16th day of May 2025. Now, Interior Cabinet Secretary, that is Kipchumba Murkomen, has appeared to contradict President William Ruto's recent remarks made in the presence of visiting Finnish President Alexander Stubb that all abducted Kenyans had been reunited with their families. Now, however, speaking during in an interview in a local TV station on Wednesday evening, Murkomen claimed the president had been misunderstood, insisting that his remarks were taken out of context. Murkomen argued that President Ruto had used the term abduction merely to acknowledge public reports, not to imply state involvement He instead insisted that a more appropriate phrase should be missing persons. President Ruto's remarks have stirred public debate, with many Kenyans interpreting them as an admission to the state involvement in the abductions. Now, in his first stance, the reporting, nobody says so, and so has been abducted because abduction implies culpability. Murkomen added, now the truth is that there are reports of missing persons over the last 7 years. There have been about 700 such cases. Last year alone, 123 were reported missing, and this year about 13 so far. But critics have not conceived, or rather convinced, by the so-called clarification. Former public service CS Justin Muturi accused the president of issuing contradictory statements in an attempt to obscure government involvement in the abductions. Now, on December 28th of 2024, the president said he would end abductions. In October, he claimed he did not know anyone who has been abducted. Now he says abductees have reunited with their families. Now, Muturi yesterday on an FM owned by Standard Group said that these are not the words of a leader committed to truth and justice. Muturi said the president's comments were particularly insensitive, and families whose loved ones are still lost. Now, as Commander-in-Chief, the president must act, not dismiss the pain of victims. Muturi, whose son Leslie was abducted in 2024 after publicly accused the National Intelligence Service, that is the NIS, of orchestrating the disappearance. Now, the mere fact of Nurdin Haji admitted to having my son, that is the words of the former CS Justin Muturi, says, a mere fact that Nurdin Haji admitted to have my son and promised the president to release him within an hour, which happened, is proof enough, Muturi said during, of course, the interview. Now, contrary to the President William Ruto at Sagana State Launch, the cabinet never deliberated on the abductions or extrajudicial killings. Appearing before Parliament Defense and Foreign Relations Committee on Monday, NIS Director General Nurdin Haji painted a grim picture of Kenya's border security. Now, matters border threat, he warned MPs to armed groups, including Ethiopia's Oromo Liberation Army, that is OLA, had already occupied parts of Kenyan territory, while national security agencies remained underfunded and ill-equipped. Of course, now we can understand the title Tower of Babel. President William Ruto says all abductees who abducted have been returned to their families. And Interior CS Kipchumba Murkomen is kind of protecting the president, saying that he was misunderstood, and the appropriate word the president ought to say was missing persons instead of abducted persons. Right? Moving on, budget cuts cripple police hiring modernization for 2027 elections. Now, the National Police Service, that is the NPS, says a 25% budget slash has been derailed its plan to recruit 10,000 officers ahead of the 2027 general elections. Inspector General of Police, that is, of course, Douglas Kanja, said the cuts have affected recruitment efforts meant to fulfill staffing gaps and prepare for the polls. Now, the shortfall also affects training, domestic travel, fuel, maintenance of vehicles, and procurement of specialized materials. He added that the NPS also lost 200 million Kenya shillings meant for police modernization. The funds were to support the purchase of crowd control gear in readiness for the 2027 polls. And you will wonder why they have to, have crowd control gear in 2027. Continues to say Kenyans' current police to population ratio stands at 1:509 to 1:440 since the last recruitment in 2022. Now, the service has lost 5,000 officers through neutral attrition. Now, police chiefs presenting the 2025-2026 budget estimates to the National Assembly Committee on Administration and Internal Security said the key priority areas remains critically underfunded. Now, the National Police Service faces a shortfall of 29.89 billion Kenya shillings in recruitment expenditure and 11.07 billion Kenya shillings in development funding, totaling to a deficit of 40.96 billion Kenya shillings. Right, moving on to matters education now. The Standard newspaper, the Public Service Commission has distanced itself from the ongoing leadership statement of the University of Nairobi. In a press statement issued on Wednesday, PSC Vice Chairperson Mary Kimonye said the commission had executed its mandate according to the law in hiring a new Vice Chancellor. Kimonye said further ones that the impasse threats academic operations and service delivery at Kenya's leading public university. Now, she noted that PSC had already conducted a competitive merit-based selection process for the Vice Chancellor and Deputy Vice Chancellor positions at UN in accordance with the Universities Act. The PCS pointed out also that since the new commission leadership took office in January 2025, it has cleared backlog of 19 Vice Chancellors appointments in public universities including Kenyatta University, Pwani University, multimedia universities, among others, all without incident. Right? Moving on to matters crime, Standard newspaper, Kayole woman died of strangulation post-mortem reveals. Now, Catherine Wanjiru, also known as Sharon Kate, 40 years old, whose body was discovered at her home near Kayole Junction on May 10th of 2025, died from strangulation and excessive bleeding. An autopsy has been confirmed. Now, while initial reports suggested she had been stabbed multiple times on the head and around the armpits, a post-mortem conducted at Mama Lucy Kibaki Funeral Home revealed that windpipe had been broken. The autopsy revealed a knife wound pierced her ribs, causing severe internal bleeding. Of course, we hope that justice will be served to the slain woman. Moving on, residents heckled Governor Lusaka over state of roads. Now, Bungoma Kenneth Lusaka was heckled by residents over poor roads in the country during a launch of 55 million Kenya shillings sports academy at Friends School, Bakoli in Webuye West constituency. Now, the event presided over by Sports Cabinet Secretary Salim Vuria turned sour when Sports Principal Secretary Elijah Mwangi praised Lusaka's road projects. Angry residents interrupted him, claiming most roads were in poor shape and urging the governor to act swiftly. In response, Lusaka pleaded for the patients, citing weather-related issues. He defended the record, pointing to fertilizer subsidies and ongoing construction of Masina Murilo Stadium. He urged CS Mvuria to push for speedy stadium completion and announced plans for a level 6 hospital in Bungoma. Meanwhile, Bungoma Senator Wafula Wakoli is leading a Senate probe into the use of donor fund in agriculture. The Senate Agriculture Committee, chaired by Wakoli, aims to ensure that funds benefit farmers and integrate agriculture with the border economic plans. Of course, that can get it on page 5 on the Standard newspaper. Now, capital markets, moving on to matters trade and business, regulatory approved standard rights issue. Now, the Capital Markets Authority has given a Standard Group a green light to raise 1.5 billion from shareholders through a rights issue. Of course, that particular story can get it on page 6 of the Standard newspaper. Now, Moi University dismisses 900. Of course, that is on page 2 of the Standard newspaper. Of course, it is exactly 16 minutes past the top of the hour. That's not to wrap up our bulletin here, rather our program here. You've been watching The Drifts on EBN TV. My name is Martin Masharia. Of course, we'll be keeping tabs with these developing stories and we'll be bringing you, subsequent bulletins later on in the day. My name is Martin Masharia. Fred Njeri will be coming up in a few with the Leadership Challenge. And as at that note, let's meet again later on in the day as we continue keeping you up to speed, those happening from across the 47 counties and of course across the borders as far as news is concerned. My name is Martin Masharia. Let's meet again when God says we do.